At this place in history, we're in Pittsford with Executive Director of the Vermont Historical Society, Steve Perkins. What brings us to Pittsford today?
We're going to learn all about the early iron industry here in Pittsford, but also in Vermont. So we're going to go down to the Pittsford Historical Society, and we're going to go see Steve Belcher and Bill Powers, and they're going to tell us all about it.
So how did the iron industry come to Pittsford, and how did it really take off here?
There were local iron industries all over Vermont at the time. In 1797, a person named Israel Keith built the first furnace, Furnace Brook, where he could harness water power to blow air into it, and where the resources were there. There was iron in the area. There were lots of woods to make into charcoal to burn, to melt the iron ore. Over time, Israel Keith sold the furnace to a Mr. Gibb, who sold it to the Grangers. And the Grangers really define the iron industry in Pittsford because they had an establishment going where the furnace produced iron, pig iron, and then they had a foundry nearby where they began making stoves. They had houses for the workers. They had actually an entire community built up around the furnace. Somewhere in there, the railway arrived, and that made transportation a lot easier. Granger Stove Company began shipping stoves all over New England. The furnace was taken over by a Mr. Pritchard, and it was under Mr. Pritchard that the essentially operations came to a close because the economics of running a small local foundry or iron furnace had no longer become workable. You know, people like Cooper Hewitt and the Pittsford steel industry had essentially outpriced everything. There was a story that the reason it closed was because everybody fell asleep and let the fires run down, leaving the furnace essentially plugged up with a large thing of metal. But even so, it did happen that the fires died, the metal congealed, and after that, the furnace was inoperable.
What sort of products came about from the iron industry in Pittsford?
Well, we have right here in this in the Historical Society here, we have a number of stoves. I think if you want to take a look at those, that's the primary product here, and we have 5 of them here in the Historical Society.
Bill, how can folks visit and learn about the Pittsford iron industry today?
The best place to come is right here in the Pittsford Historical Society. We have great displays. We've got artifacts. And we're open every Tuesday from 9 to 4. It's not only that, if they want to see other items of Pittsford history, this is the best place to be.
We are ironing all the details out in Pittsford.
At this place in history.